derive the quadratic formula. Now this is important to know because the quadratic formula is used extensively in many different applications, even in higher math. So let's get started. Okay, so the derivation is mainly based on the concept of coupling the square. So we start off with the standard form of a quadratic, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. Now, first thing we want to do is move c to the other side. So we have x squared plus bx equals negative c. And then we want to take the coefficient of the x to the first power and divide by 2 and then square it, right? So we get, when we add to both sides, we would get x squared plus bx over a plus b squared over 4a squared equals negative c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. Now the reason why everything's over a is because in order for the cleanest square to work, the coefficient must be 1. So I divided everything by 1 and then divided b over a multiplied by 1/2 and squared it, so you get b squared over 4a squared and add to both sides. So you get x squared plus bx over a plus b squared over 4a squared equals negative c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. And we want to take the square root of both sides. So then, because essentially this whole thing is just x. This whole thing is x plus b over 2a squared. When we take the square root, this remains. It's not square anymore, and then it'd be negative c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. Now we will go back to the notion of creating a common denominator, and then after you create a common denominator, here you'd get well, actually first you would want to move isolate x and move the negative the b over 2a over here, so it becomes negative plus minus the radical. So x would be equal to negative b over 2a plus minus square root of negative c over a plus b squared over 4a squared. Alright, and then over here we would just want to create a common denominator, right, over 4a squared. So it'd be x equals negative b over 2a plus minus the square root. You multiply this whole thing by 4a, so you get negative 4ac over 4a squared plus b squared over 4a squared, right? Because negative c times 4a is just negative 4ac. And then after you add it together and put it under a common denominator, 4a squared, same thing as 2a. So essentially you have x equals negative b over 2a plus minus b squared minus 4ac. All we did was just, it doesn't matter because it's a community property of the addition. You can just move it around over 2a. 2a is what happens when you square 4a squared. It's just 2a. And then since this is under the same denominator, you can combine it into x equals negative b, or sorry, you can combine it into x equals negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, and this is the more common every day, and that's how you get from the standard form to the root of x. So it's just that all you're doing actually is just isolating x. If you've noticed, all you're doing is isolating x. That's really the whole point. Just to get the roots. The point of the quadratic equation is just to solve for the roots. R1 and R2. So that's how you do it.